Jack Harmon pressed his face against the glass of the underwater research pod. The deep-sea vent glowed in the darkness. Another normal Tuesday, he thought. He adjusted his equipment and checked the readings. The new species of thermovent bacteria could revolutionize medicine. A shadow passed overhead. Jack looked up, squinting through the murky water. That wasn't on the schedule. No other vessels were supposed to be in this sector. The shadow grew larger. Jack's heart beat faster. This wasn't a research vessel or submarine. The shape was wrong. Too smooth, too perfect. The radio crackled. "Base to Harmon. We're picking up an unidentified object near your position. Return to surface immediately." Jack grabbed the controls. "Roger that. I'm seeing it too. Beginning ascent now." The pod's engines whined as Jack pushed them to full power. The shadow followed, matching his speed effortlessly. A bright light suddenly flooded the pod. Jack shielded his eyes. The water around him seemed to vibrate. The pod's instruments went crazy, needles swinging wildly. "Base, I'm experiencing some kind of interference. System's failing. I can't—" The radio died. The engines stopped. Jack floated in sudden silence, the only sound his own breathing. The pod jerked upward. Jack tumbled against the ceiling, then the floor. They were being pulled up, fast. Too fast. The pressure gauges spun dangerously. "This isn't happening," Jack whispered. The water fell away. The pod wasn't in the ocean anymore. It hung suspended in a massive chamber. Bright lights blinded Jack. He glimpsed metal walls, strange symbols, and moving shapes. The pod door hissed open. Jack backed away, grabbing a wrench from his toolkit. The air smelled wrong, metallic and sharp. Two figures entered. They walked on two legs but weren't human. Their skin was gray-blue with a pattern of ridges. Their eyes were large, black, and without pupils. They stood nearly 7 feet tall. One pointed a device at Jack. His muscles locked up. He couldn't move. The wrench clattered to the floor. They dragged him through curved hallways into a white room. Other creatures worked at stations with floating screens. They all turned to look at Jack. One approached. It wore some kind of metal collar that glowed blue. "Human, you are specimen. For study." Jack struggled to speak through his frozen jaw. What are you?" "We are Vrax, hunters. You are prey." They strapped Jack to a table. A scanner moved over his body. The aliens chittered to each other in a language of clicks and growls. "Weak," said the one with the collar. "Humans are weak. Good for conquest." They moved Jack again, down more hallways to a cell. They threw him inside. He landed hard on the metal floor. His muscles started working again. He scrambled to his feet. The cell had one clear wall. Through it, Jack saw another cell. Something moved inside it. Something not human, but not like his captors either. Smaller, faster. "Observe," said the alien with the collar. "This is Vrax young. Cub. Not fully grown, but already stronger than human." The creature in the other cell paced. It looked like a younger version of the aliens, but moved on all fours. Its eyes fixed on Jack with unmistakable hunger. "We test human against cub. See how quickly you die." The clear wall between the cells began to slide open. The cub tensed, muscles rippling under its scaled skin. It bared teeth like needles. Jack backed against the wall. No weapons, no escape. The cub crouched, ready to pounce. Jack felt a tickle in his nose from the strange air. The cub leaped toward him. Jack sneezed. The cub froze midair. It crashed to the floor, its body shaking. Strange noises came from its throat. The aliens outside the cell went silent. The one with the collar pressed against the glass, watching intently. The cub wasn't attacking. It was convulsing in what looked like laughter? Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. The aliens ran from the observation area. Jack heard distant explosions. The ship shuddered. Someone was attacking. Earth had found him. But as Jack looked at the screens showing the battle outside, his hope died. Earthships were tiny compared to the Vrax vessels. They were being destroyed one by one. Commander Allison Reeves gripped the arms of her captain's chair as another blast rocked the ship. The bridge of the USS Defender filled with smoke. Warning lights flashed red across every console. "Shields at 20%, shouted Lieutenant Garcia. "We can't take another hit like that." Allison wiped blood from her forehead. "Keep firing. We need to buy the rescue team more time." On the main screen, 3 more Earthships exploded in silent bursts of light. The Virax vessels were too big, too powerful. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. "Commander," called the communications officer. "We're getting a weak signal from inside the alien mothership." "It's Dr. Harmon." Allison jumped from her chair. "Put it through." Static filled the speakers, then Jack's voice broke through. "Discovered something. Their weakness. Protein in human causes neurological." The signal cut out. "Get him back," Allison ordered. "Can't, Commander. Signal's gone." Allison turned to her science officer. "What was he saying? Something about proteins?" Dr. Patel was already working at his station. "If I had to guess, he's found some biological reaction between humans and the Vrax. Something in our biology affects their nervous system." "The rescue team needs this information," Allison said. "Send everything we heard to Captain Diaz." Inside the Virax mothership, Captain Diaz led his team through dark corridors. 6 Marines in battle armor moved silently, weapons ready. "Life signs ahead," whispered Sergeant Wu, checking her scanner. 1 human, 2 aliens. They rounded a corner. 2 Vrax guards stood outside a cell. Inside, Jack Harmon paced back and forth. "Take them quick and quiet," Diaz ordered. The Marines raised their weapons. Before they could fire, Jack saw them through the cell barrier. His eyes widened. He pointed frantically at his nose, then at the guards. Diaz hesitated, confused. His comm unit beeped softly. A message from the Defender. He read it quickly and understood. "Hold fire," he whispered to his team. Then he stepped into the open and took a deep breath. The Vrax guards spun toward him, raising their weapons. Diaz sneezed loudly. The effect was instant. Both guards dropped their weapons. They fell to the floor, bodies shaking in what looked like seizures. Strange gurgling sounds came from their throats. "They're laughing," Wu said in amazement. Diaz rushed to the cell controls. The barrier disappeared. Jack stumbled out. "How did you know?" Jack asked. "Your message got through partly. What's happening to them?" Jack looked at the incapacitated guards. "Something in human sneeze particles triggers their nervous system. It's like being tickled but 1,000 times stronger. They can't control it." "We need to get this information back to Earth," Diaz said. "This could be our only chance." They moved quickly through the ship. Jack led them to a laboratory where Vrax scientists had been studying him. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing to screens showing human and Vrax DNA. "They've been studying us for years. They think we're weak, easy targets, but they never expected this reaction." Diaz downloaded the data. "Command needs to see this. We can develop weapons using this protein." An explosion rocked the ship. The rescue team stumbled. "That's our cue to leave," Diaz said. "The Defender is creating a diversion." They ran toward the hangar bay where their shuttle waited. Alarms blared. Red emergency lights pulsed along the corridors. Jack stopped suddenly at an intersection. "Wait, this way." "That's not the way to the hangar," Diaz protested. "I saw something when they brought me in. Something important." Jack led them down a different corridor to a massive door. The lock required Vrax DNA. Jack pulled out a vial of saliva he'd collected from the laughing cub. "Smart thinking," Diaz said as the door slid open. Inside was a room filled with star maps and tactical displays. Jack pointed to the largest screen. "They're not just attacking Earth, they're running from something." The screen showed thousands of Virax ships fleeing across the galaxy. Behind them, a massive dark cloud consumed everything in its path. "What is that?" Diaz whispered. Jack zoomed in on the image. "I don't know, but the Vraks are terrified of it, and it's heading our way." A new alarm sounded. The door behind them slammed shut. Gas began pouring into the room from hidden vents. "Trap!" Diaz gasped as the team collapsed one by one. The last thing Jack saw before losing consciousness was a human face on one of the screens. Someone working with the Vraks. Someone from Earth. Jack woke up with a pounding headache. The floor beneath him vibrated. He was in a small cell again, but different from the first one. Captain Diaz and 2 Marines lay unconscious beside him. "Wake up!" Jack shook Diaz's shoulder. "We need to move." Diaz groaned and opened his eyes. "What happened?" "Gas knocked us out. The others must be in different cells. They helped the Marines up. Everyone was dizzy but alive. The cell had one door with a small window. Jack peered through it. "Guards?" Diaz asked. "One. Looks bored." Jack felt his pockets. The Vraks had taken everything except his clothes, but he still had an idea. "I need to sneeze again," Jack said. "How?" "We can't just make ourselves sneeze," Diaz said. One of the Marines, Rodriguez, pulled out a small packet from inside his boot. "Pepper, for emergency rations. Never liked the taste anyway." Jack grinned. "Perfect." They called to the guard. When the Vraks approached the window, Jack blew the pepper directly into his own face. The sneeze that followed was explosive. The guard collapsed immediately, body shaking with uncontrollable laughter. Jack reached through the window and hit the door release. "We need to find the others and get to the hangar," Diaz said. They moved through the corridors carefully. The ship was in battle mode. Vrak soldiers ran past intersections, too busy to notice the escaped humans. "Listen," Jack said as they hid in a maintenance shaft. "Earth needs to know what we found. About the Vrak's weakness and the thing chasing them." "The Defender might still be out there," Diaz said. "If we can reach a communication station." They found 1-2 decks up. The room was empty. While Diaz worked on the communication system, Jack studied the battle displays. "This is amazing," Jack said. "Earth forces are using the protein weapon already. They must have developed it from the data we sent." The screens showed Vrak's ships in chaos. Some drifted powerless in space. On others, crews were incapacitated by laughter gas bombs. "Earth Command, this is Captain Diaz," Diaz said into the comm. "We have critical intelligence about a greater threat." Static answered him. Then a voice broke through. "This is General Frank Donovan. Report, Captain." Jack froze. The voice matched the face he'd seen on the screen before passing out. "Sir," Diaz continued, unaware, "the Vraks are fleeing from an unknown entity. Some kind of consuming force. We need to—" Jack lunged across the room and cut the transmission. "What are you doing?" Diaz demanded. "Donovan is working with the Vraks," Jack said. "I saw his face on their command screens." Diaz stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. He's the head of Earth Defense." "Which makes him the perfect traitor." An explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. "We need to move," Rodriguez said. "This argument can wait." They left the communication room and headed toward the detention area to find the rest of the team. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with 3 Vrak soldiers. Before anyone could react, the ship shuddered violently. The artificial gravity failed. Humans and Vraks floated helplessly as the ship spun. Emergency systems kicked in. Gravity returned suddenly, slamming everyone to the floor. In the confusion, Jack and the others escaped down a side corridor. "What was that?" Diaz asked. They reached a viewport and looked outside. What they saw made them freeze in horror. A massive dark cloud had appeared at the edge of the battle. It wasn't a cloud at all, but billions of tiny machines. They swarmed over a Vrak's battleship, consuming it piece by piece. "The Nexus," Jack whispered. "That's what they're running from." A new alarm sounded throughout the ship. The Vraks were no longer focused on the humans. They were preparing for a new enemy. The door behind them slid open. They spun around, weapons ready. But it wasn't Vrak's soldiers. It was an elder Virax, its scales faded with age. Behind it stood the young cub that had laughed at Jack's sneeze. "Human," the elder said in perfect English. "We must speak, before the Nexus consumes us all." The cub made a strange gesture with its front limbs. It wasn't threatening. It looked almost like a greeting. "Why should we trust you?" Jack asked. The elder Virax's next words changed everything. "Because your kind and mine have met before. Long ago. We were not always enemies." The elder Virax led Jack and the others through hidden passages in the massive ship. The young cub trotted alongside Jack, occasionally making soft, clicking sounds. "My name is Krell," the elder said. "This young one is called Echo in your language." "Why help us?" Diaz asked, still gripping his weapon. "The Nexus does not discriminate. It consumes all organic life." They entered a chamber filled with ancient artifacts. Stone tablets, primitive tools, and cave paintings lined the walls. Jack recognized some of the images. "These are human," he said in shock. "Cave paintings from Earth, at least 30,000 years old." Krell nodded. "Our ancestors visited your world long ago. We were not warriors then, but explorers." "What happened?" Jack asked. "Civil war. The warrior caste took control. They erased our shared history." Outside the viewport, the battle raged. Earthships and Vrak's vessels now fought side by side against the advancing Nexus swarm. The tiny machines devoured everything they touched, growing larger with each ship they consumed. "The laughter response," Jack said suddenly. "It's not a weakness, is it?" "No," Krell replied. "It is a remnant of trust. When your ancestors made our young laugh, it formed a bond. The warriors saw this as weakness and forbade contact." Echo made a series of clicks and touched Jack's hand with a clawed finger. "He says you remind him of stories his mother told," Krell translated, "about humans and Vraks as friends." A violent explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. "We don't have time for history lessons," Diaz said. "How do we stop the Nexus?" Krell moved to a console and brought up ancient data. "There may be a way. The Nexus responds to certain frequencies. Both human laughter and Vrak's threat displays create sound waves that disrupt their communication network." "That's why they avoid direct contact with living beings," Jack realized. "Our biological responses interfere with their systems." "Exactly," Krell said. "But small disruptions are not enough. We need a concentrated burst across all frequencies." The ship shuddered again. Emergency alarms blared. "The Nexus has breached the outer hull," a Vrak's voice announced over the speakers. "All warriors to defense stations." "We need to get to the command center," Krell said. "But the warriors will not listen to me. I am considered a heretic for studying the old ways." Jack looked at Echo, then at Diaz. "We need to find the rest of your team, and we need to contact Earth about General Donovan's betrayal." "Split up," Diaz suggested. Jack nodded. "You find your people. I'll go with Krell and Echo to the command center." As they prepared to leave, the door burst open. A squad of Vrak's warriors entered, weapons raised. Behind them stood a human in an Earth military uniform. "General Donovan," Diaz growled. "Captain," Donovan replied coldly. "I see you've met the opposition." "Why?" Jack demanded. "Why betray your own species?" "Betray?" Donovan laughed. "I'm saving humanity. The Vraks offered us protection from the Nexus in exchange for our surrender. It was the only logical choice. And now?" Jack gestured to the viewport where Vrak's ships were being consumed. "Their protection doesn't look very effective." Donovan's face hardened. "Plans change. The Vrak's warriors have a new strategy. Sacrifice this system to slow the Nexus while their main fleet escapes." "You're helping them abandon Earth," Diaz said in horror. "Some sacrifices are necessary." Echo suddenly darted forward, moving faster than anyone could track. He knocked Donovan's legs out from under him. The general crashed to the floor. In the confusion, Jack grabbed Donovan's sidearm. Diaz and the Marines engaged the Vrax warriors. Krell pulled Jack toward a side exit. "This way," the elder Vrax urged. "We must reach the communication hub." As they ran, Jack looked back at the battle. Echo was nowhere to be seen. They reached the hub minutes later. Krell worked quickly, bypassing security protocols. "There," he said. "You can send your message to Earth." Jack transmitted everything they had learned about the Nexus, the Vrax history, and Donovan's betrayal. As he finished, the door slid open. Echo limped in, bleeding from several wounds. Behind him came the sounds of approaching warriors. "They're coming," the young Virax said in broken English. Jack stared in surprise. "You can speak our language?" Echo made a sound that resembled a laugh. "Learn from ship computer. While you sleep." The console beeped. A message from Earth Command appeared on screen. Jack read it and looked up at Krell and Echo with new determination. Earth forces have discovered something in the Nexus core. They think it's not just a machine swarm. "What is it?" Krell asked. "They believe the Nexus contains the consciousness of every species it has ever consumed." The combined human-Vrax fleet formed a protective ring around Earth. Inside the Vrax mothership, Jack, Echo, and Krell worked frantically at the command center. Captain Diaz and Commander Reeves coordinated the defense from the bridge of the Defender. "The Nexus is changing formation," Reeves reported over the comm. "It's concentrating into a single mass." Jack watched the main screen. The billions of tiny machines were merging into a massive sphere. It pulsed with strange energy. "It's never done this before," Krell said, his voice tense. "This is new behavior." Echo studied the readings from his station. Energy signature changing. It's trying to communicate. A message appeared on all screens across the fleet. The language was strange, a mix of symbols from 100 different species. "Can we translate it?" Jack asked. Krell worked the controls. "Partially, it says, 'We are many. We are preservation.'" "Preservation?" Jack frowned. "They're destroying everything." The Nexus sphere pulsed again. More symbols appeared. "Created to save. Program corrupted. Species added to collective." Krell translated. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. "It's not a weapon. It's an arc gone wrong." "What do you mean?" Echo asked. "Someone built the Nexus to preserve species facing extinction, but something went wrong with its programming. Instead of saving samples, it's consuming entire civilizations." The Nexus moved closer. Earth's defense systems fired automatically. The energy weapons passed through the sphere with no effect. "We need to reset it," Jack said suddenly. "If it was created with a purpose, there must be a core program we can access." Krell shook his head. "Impossible. We cannot communicate with it effectively." Echo made a series of clicks, then spoke. "Human laughter. Vrax calls. Together, make pattern. Pattern disrupts Nexus." Jack looked at the young Vrax. "You think our combined sounds could create a communication channel?" "Yes, like old times, when humans and Vrax were friends." Krell's eyes widened. "The ancient harmonics. Our ancestors used sound patterns to share knowledge." Jack turned to the comm. "Commander Reeves, we need to broadcast a specific frequency pattern. Can you configure the fleet's communication arrays?" "What frequency?" she asked. "We'll send it to you. It's going to be a combination of human laughter and Vrax vocalization." Jack and Echo entered a small chamber with recording equipment. They stood face to face. "Ready?" Jack asked. Echo made the Virax equivalent of a smile. "Ready, friend." Jack thought of the most ridiculous joke he knew. He started laughing. Echo responded with the rhythmic clicking calls of his species. Their sounds merged, creating a complex pattern of waves. Krell monitored the results. "It's working. The pattern is creating a carrier wave that the Nexus recognizes." Across the fleet, humans and Vrax broadcast the sound pattern. The Nexus sphere stopped advancing. It pulsed with new colors. "We're receiving a direct communication," Reeves reported, putting it on screen. A face appeared. Not human, not Vrax, but something older. Its voice was a blend of countless species. "We remember now," it said. "We were created to preserve, not consume. Error in base programming. Correction accepted." The sphere began to change. Parts of it separated, forming smaller spheres. "What's happening?" Jack asked. "The Nexus is releasing the consciousness of consumed species," Krell said in awe. "It's returning to its original purpose." One of the smaller spheres approached the mothership. It projected an image, ancient Vrax and humans standing together on Earth, thousands of years ago. "We remember this," the Nexus voice said. "We will help restore what was lost." 3 months later, Jack stood in a new facility on Earth. Humans and Vrax worked side by side, learning from each other. Echo had become Earth's first Vrax ambassador. "The Nexus has established outposts in 17 systems," Echo reported. "It's helping restore planets it damaged and preserving endangered species as it was meant to." Jack nodded. "And General Donovan?" "Facing trial for treason, but many understand his fear. He thought he was saving humanity." Jack watched a group of Vrax cubs playing with human children in the facility's garden. The cubs collapsed in laughter when the children sneezed. "Funny how something so simple brought us together," Jack said. Echo made a clicking sound of agreement. "Not weakness to find joy in fear, is strength." In orbit above Earth, the Nexus sphere maintained its watch. Inside it, the consciousness of 1,000 species worked to repair the damage of centuries. And among them, the first seeds of a new consciousness were forming, one that understood both preservation and freedom. The universe was changing, and it had started with a sneeze.